Hello, and welcome to Small Things, Big Success: How Daily Habits Create Extraordinary Results. My name is Dr. Celeste Cuffie, and I will be your host on today. What you're looking at is a screen, a little bit about me. I am a wife, I am a mother, I am a auntie, a sister. I like to also think of myself as a very good friend. But those are the things, as you can see at the top of the list, that I hope are the things that will be part of my legacy and that I would leave behind. But in addition to that, I am a life learner. I just several weeks ago here finished up my doctorate degree in strategic leadership. I have a MBA with a focus in management and finance, and I also have a bachelor's of arts degree with business management and communication. I have quite an extensive career. I've been in corporate America in some form or fashion for almost for over 30 years now. I'm grateful for all the opportunities that I've had. And it is through these opportunities that have given me some decision points where I've decided to focus on the areas that you see here: corporate education, executive coaching, strategic planning, communication culture. And all of those things as my focus areas is what enables me to do the work that I do at Cream City Cyber, where I am both the co-founder of the organization as well as the chief people officer in this boutique size, but very, very mighty and powerful cybersecurity firm. So, this is what we're going to go through today. This is what we are going to discuss. We are going to do welcomes and intros, and I've already introduced myself, but we're going to talk about habits. We're going to talk about the power of habits. We're going to talk about breaking old habits. We're going to talk about the habit loop, and then also we will have space for a Q&A. And with that said, let's go ahead and just jump in and begin. When you think about a habit, it is important to understand that there is a science behind it. And the habit is a behavior repeated so regularly that it becomes automatic. It is stored in the brain's basal ganglia, freeing conscious thought for higher decisions. And really, what that means is subconscious behavior, unconscious behavior. And this is where sometimes biases lay. This is definitely where some of those habits lay, automatic habits. And so that is what an habit is these behaviors that have repeated so much that you just automatically do it. The brain forms habits through something that we call a habit loop, which is a cue, a routine, and then the reward. And once it's wired, the loop fires with minimal effort. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But the long and the short of it is that a habit is just something that you do on a regular basis. And now, habits can be assigned, right? They could be good habits, they could be not so good habits. And so when you think about good habits, think of practicing gratitude daily. Think of reading and continuous learning. Think of exercising on a regular basis, getting enough sleep. These are all what I would define, and I'm sure many scholars and researchers also define as good habits. Now, conversely, there's something that's called not so good habits or negative habits, such as negative self talk. What are we saying to ourselves? Frequent complaining. Did you know that complaining could be a habit? We look for the things that are wrong that we can call out. Procrastination is another habit. Again, defined, I'm sure, also by scholars as not so good, not so positive. And so now that we kind of understand what a habit is, let's talk about what makes them so important, what makes them so powerful. Habits are important. They are powerful because they do a couple of things. The first thing that they do is they conserve your willpower. You've heard me say automatic, you've heard me say autopilot, you've heard me say subconscious or unconscious behaviors. And the reason why they do that is because it conserves your willpower. It enables you to run on autopilot, really preserving your mental energy for decisions that really matter. So these are the things like, so I have it brushing your teeth every day. You don't think about brushing your teeth. You get up and you brush your teeth. And that's just part of your day. So that you don't have to use any energy to decide or to determine whether or not you've brushed your teeth. The other thing about habits is important to note here is that it builds your identity. I'm going to pause right there because this is an important point. Your habits do, in fact, build your identity. Who you are today is a result of yesterday's habits. Who you become tomorrow depends on the habits you choose today. And understand that choice is an intentional behavior, but those intentional behaviors become habits over the process of time. And so when we talk about the power of habits, it compounds over time. And so those small, consistent things, they compound exponentially, right? So when you think about brushing your teeth 3 minutes every day, what the output is going to be after a year of brushing your teeth, after 6 months of brushing your teeth and going to the dentist, as opposed to waiting the week before the dentist appointment and now trying to brush all of the decay off. That doesn't happen. That doesn't work. And so there is this time component that must be considered when we are discussing habits. The next thing is that it creates momentum. One good habit creates and triggers other good habits. If you go to the gym and don't even do exercise, after a while, because you've built the habit of going, the next thing that your mind will trigger you to do is actually do some form of exercise once you've gotten to the gym. And so habits can really cascade into life-changing behaviors. And that's what we're talking about today. These small habits that really can lead to, and not only can, but will lead to significant success in the long run. And so I talked a little bit about the habit loop a little bit ago, and I want to really spend a little bit more time around that. The habit loop is a framework that explains it explains how habits are formed and maintained. And so it really consists of these three parts: the cue, the routine, and the reward. Think about the cue as a trigger that tells your brain to initiate a behavior. Waking up might be your cue to grab your phone today. Waking up, it could be the cue to brush your teeth in the morning. Whatever that is, a cue is a trigger that tells your brain to initiate a behavior, such as feeling stressed, seeing a notification, or finishing a meal. Those are just other examples. A routine is the behavior itself, the action that you take in response to the cue. So, again, you woke up, and so your morning cue is to wash your face, to brush your teeth, to comb your hair. Your routine is to check your phone. Your routine is to eat a snack midday every day at 2 o'clock, whatever that is. There's something that cues it, and then the routine happens. And then after that, there is the reward. The reward is the benefit or the satisfaction that you actually receive from the behavior, such as a relief, such as a pleasure, such as an accomplishment or a connection. When I think about social media, sometimes it is just the curiosity of seeing what others are doing, but there is a reward. So there's the cue, there is the routine, and there is the reward. And over time, the brain associates the cue with the reward. And so the routine becomes increasingly automatic, not because the routine is what we care about, but it's the reward that the brain is trying to get. And so understanding this loop is powerful because behavior changes not only from relying on the willpower is not enough, but identifying the cues that trigger the habits and intentionally redesign the routines and the rewards that follow. So, is there a more important, is there a more significant reward that you want? And what cues will we put in place to trigger the routine that will get us that reward, right? So I want to pause for a second here and I want you to think about some rewards that you'd like. For me, I think about more energy. I think about being healthier. I think about um, increasing my knowledge. Those are all rewards that I'd like. So, what should cue it and what should the routines be to get me there? And that is the question that we have to ask ourselves and really kind of map out so that way we can accomplish the things that we want to accomplish with the rewards that we want. But before we really get into those new habits, I want us to spend some time discussing how to break some of the old habits. We talked a little bit about good habits and not so good habits. And I want you to redefine bad habits as not necessarily bad, but those that just no longer serve you. So we pause for a moment to think about kind of the habit loop. Now I want us to think about habits that we've already formed that are not serving us. How is social media serving us um, positively or effectively? How is late night meals serving us? I know that, and I smile when I talk about this. Now, at a different chapter in my life, I can't necessarily eat spicy food like I am accustomed to. So, how is that now serving, or is it serving me today, the spicy food? And so, when we are thinking about those old habits, whichever one you choose in your mind, let's walk through this 5 step process to break that habit. Identify the cue and the reward. And I'll use food, for example. I might get a taste for spicy food. But what's the reward? Is the reward the spice or is it flavorful? Now that I've thought about this, I know that I love very flavorful food. It doesn't have to be spicy. With that in mind, how do I swap the routine? I have the same cue where I have a taste for spicy food and the reward of enjoying it, but now I need a healthier routine, which is more flavor, not more spice. And so now I'm going to interrupt that routine with not spicy food, but more flavorful, well-seasoned food. And then also increasing the friction. Sometimes we have to make that old habit more difficult to access. My favorite place for guacamole is a restaurant that is no longer in close proximity. So I have to drive nearly 40 minutes to get to this guacamole that I love. And so that is how I make it more difficult. That's how I increase the friction, or I try not to keep snacks, especially the ones that I love in my house, because that makes it more difficult for me to access. So increasing that friction is a strategy or a step. Rebuilding the identity. So shifting even our language from I'm trying to quit spicy food to someone who likes flavorful food. That is what my new identity is. And rebuilding that not only in my words, in my language, but also in my behavior and how I have set up the environment around me, which is that increased friction that we talk about. And then the last thing is the plan for the dip, meaning that every now and then we may go back. So when I feel the urge for spicy guacamole, I will go for medium instead of spicy. So it's kind of like a if then statement, planning for those difficult things. What will I do to substitute? Another good example for me is if I do not make it to the gym today, then I will at least walk on the treadmill for 10 minutes. It is some compensating way to still get to that reward in a different way while breaking those old habits. So Now that we've talked about how to break old habits, we've talked about understanding the habit loops, we've also talked about why habits are important. Let's talk about five things. These are five very small things that you can do today. And it took me a while to come up with these five habits because I wanted to find habits that I knew were used not just in my life and for me personally, but globally. And not only globally, but by high performers. And so we're talking about success. We have an end goal in mind. And so when we are thinking about success, when we're thinking about our end goal, however way we define it, these habits are things that high performers use and leverage to maximize, to implement, to execute, to realize the success objectives and goals that they have. So, are you ready? Here you go. Here we go, actually. We have to think about starting the day with a win. Each and every one of us has to realize, recognize, and remember that we are truly the CEO, the chief executive officer of our own life. But not only that, but we are also the chief operations officer for our own life. And so your day must begin with you in control. And so begin with controlling your day. When you get up in the morning, are you sitting still for those 5 minutes? When you are planning your day, are you setting the intention for your day? When are you choosing to access your phone? Are you automatically keeping the phone by your bed? Do you keep your phone by your bed? And so when you wake up, you automatically turn over and grab your phone. That might be an automatic, but now you need to unlearn that. Maybe you pick it up, turn off the alarm, so that way you can take control of your day. We want you to recreate habits so that way you are starting your morning off with wins. So that's the first thing, your morning ritual. The second thing is daily movement. We underestimate time and time again how much value is in a 20-minute walk, how it impacts your mood, how it impacts your energy, how it impacts your memory, and pair it with something. If you like a good podcast, please turn it on and walk it out. Learn something while you are exercising, while you are moving. Don't even call it exercise, change the language if that helps you. But move daily. The next thing that we want to talk about is reading for 20 minutes a day, right? So we talked about controlling your morning, we talked about movement, and now we're talking about reading daily. We talked about audiobooks or podcasts while you're moving. But replace 20 minutes of scroll time on reading a book. Keep a book on your nightstand instead of your phone. That might be an approach. And I will also tell you that daily reading also will assist you with focus. As a scroller, we are ready for something else to entertain us in the next 2, 3, 5 minutes. But if we read a book, it will force us to slow down and not skim. Read it out loud. It will force us to slow down and not skim. And it will force us to have a little bit more endurance as we are reading and learning. And that is important to do. The other thing is to protect your sleep. Now, we talk about 7 to 9 hours, and this is when your brain is repairing itself, it is learning. And the reality is that I don't sleep 7 hours a night, generally anyway, but make time for that. And if this is saying sleep 7 to 9 hours, if you can't sleep naturally 7 hours, if you can't sleep naturally 8 hours, figure out what your sleep schedule is and take that delta and use that as focus time, use that as meditation time, use that as exercise time, use that as time to do things that will still develop, pour in, and empower you. Keep your room cool and dark. That's such a a weird thing, but it makes a difference. I'm not sure why, but again, there are not many things that I teach, not many things that I teach that I don't apply myself. And that is one thing that I definitely practice. I keep my room cool. I try to keep it dark. I have a fairly consistent wake up time. I generally don't use an alarm because my body just wakes me up naturally, even on weekends. And so that's what I mean about if you don't sleep that full 7 to 9 hours, use that time again to pour into you. Set a non negotiable bedtime and not even if you don't go to bed at 10 o'clock. Set a nighttime routine that at 9 o'clock, 9:30, that you start to settle down. You go to your bedroom, you turn off the lights, whatever that routine is to help you wind down for the evening so that you can sleep well. And so those were habits 3 and 4. And here is habit number 5, which is kind of that reflect and plan. This is important because this 10-minute review will help you think about your day and it will also help you plan for your tomorrow. Now, I do it a little bit differently. Usually at the top of my week, I plan, and then at the top of every day, I plan what are the things that I want to get done today. I don't necessarily think about it the night before, but however way you do these things, what you want to do is as you've been releasing some of those other routines, you want to add these routines in so that you can do these things. And so, for example, we talked about your morning, and maybe you have an automatic reach for your phone. Maybe it's an automatic reach for a journal so that you can write down what your priorities are for that day, or a journal at the end of the night so that you can write down your priorities for the next day. This habit, it really does. It improves your self-awareness, your accountability, and your growth. Because at the end of your day, it's like you ask yourself, how did I do? And that's important. And again, 83% of high performers journal or plan daily. And as I said, these habits are not things that were just pulled out of a hat. These are habits that high performers, top performers in this country, and not only in this country, but globally, these are some of the things that they do to realize the successes that they want to accomplish and achieve. So, here, this is some information. These are some statistics that I thought would be very important to understand as we are building our habits into success. The first one is that we often forget that whether we realize it or not, we make quite a few subconscious decisions. And so we automatically grab for our phone when we get up in the morning. I gave you that example. We automatically take ourselves to work when we should be heading to a doctor's appointment. Has anybody missed an exit or took an exit going one way when you should have been going another? I know that I have. And so these things, doing just one of these things a day, these small things will make a significant difference. And don't try to do it all at once. Improvement from 1% daily growth. And this is James Clear. And by the way, if you do not have this book, if you've not read this book, I encourage you to do it. So these tiny consistent gains outperform dramatic inconsistent effort every single time. And so it's important that we build the daily habits and activities. And then this last thing that I wanted to share is that we used to always say that it took 21 days to form a habit. And I can personally attest to 21 days was not enough for me. Now, I will tell you that after 21 days, if I didn't do the thing, I could feel it like, I didn't go to the gym today. I didn't work out today. I could definitely feel it. But if we want the habit to stick, if we want the habit to be embedded, then we have to go 66 days according to this University College of London research, because at the 66th day, you don't miss anymore. It is just what you do. Just like you automatically brush your teeth, you just automatically work out. And so these are your 5 habits starting today. And again, pick one habit that you can choose that you can implement today. It might be the 5 minutes of sitting still. It might be turning to a journal instead of to your phone. It might be the 20 minutes of intentional exercise. It might be 20 minutes of reading a day. It might be putting boundaries around your sleep. It might be that reflection and plan time. Whatever it is, I guarantee you, if you do it, you will, in fact, realize the success that you are hoping for, that you are expecting, and that you are working towards. And remember, these are small things that will, in fact, lead to large, huge, significant, essential, and important success. And notice all of the adjectives there, because one, this is something that I believe. Two, this is something that I have experienced and realized myself. And three, this is something that I know that you too will experience. And so, thank you so much for joining me on today as we discussed these 5 key habits, these habits for success. Now, here are a couple of questions, Q&A, that I wanted you to think about, that I have thought about, that I've come across, and I wanted to share them with you. The first question is, what happens if I do not break the habit? Sometimes, and I recognize, right, this is a 1 hour workshop. It's much easier said than done. And so the first thing that I want you to do, if you are struggling with changing the habit or breaking the habit, is give yourself grace. The first thing that I want you to do is give yourself grace. And then the second thing that I want you to do is look at that cue, that routine, and that reward, and really understand what you're getting out of that habit. And then also think about what you really want to get, and think about it in terms of what do I need to replace to get what I really want. Okay. So, again, if you're having trouble breaking the habit, what do I do? One, I want you to give yourself grace. And then two, I want you to really think about what the reward is and how to replace the routine to get the reward that you want. So that's the first question that I Q&A that I wanted to share with you. The second thing that I wanted to share with you is the question of, what if I don't know what habits I need to break? And wow, what a great question. And I'm going to answer that question by by asking you another question. I am a coach by trade, and so as a coach, one of the things that I often do is look forward, and I'm always forward thinking. And so my question is not what do you need to break, but what does success look like for you? And what do you need to be successful? And understanding what you need to be successful will give you the insights into what new habits you need to form. And when you think about those new habits that you need to form, then you will go back. I would encourage you to go back and think about some of the habits that you need to let go of so that you can replace them, right? It's still only 24 hours a day. We've already said you're going to sleep, right? 7 to 9 of the hours of the day. So again, there's not a lot of time in a day to form these habits and to do all of the things. And so there might be a lot of replacement work that you have to do. And that is how we're going to think about the habits that you need to break. It's not so much of what you're giving up as much as it is what you're getting ready to gain. So those are the two questions that I had. Feel free to reach out with any additional questions. I thank you for your time. Thank you for joining me in this empowered hour. And I do encourage you this time and every time that we are connected. I encourage you to sincerely live life empowered. Take care. Goodbye.